Hey guys, congratulations and welcome to lesson 3 of self-awareness. Today I'm getting into knowing thy enemy. Now I know this sounds kind of wild too. You're like, Mac, why are you teaching this stuff? This is like top secret. You shouldn't be talking about enemies. You should be like super motivational and happy and nice. Well, that's a weird thing to think. But I need to tell you the reality of the world that you live in. First of all, there are things called principalities. These are forces. Now, there's a lot of things I can't control that happen in society, in the world, that kind of dictate society. But there's principalities, and I'd call these principalities the justice system, government. There's a lot of things that are out of our hands, right? But sometimes these principalities get authorities. And sometimes the authority that the principalities have can be almost like an enemy, almost acting demonic. Such things, for instance, the justice system, so to speak, isn't always just. Usually those who run a justice system are the ones that win the battles. So whoever overcomes a land, they establish their own justice system in the land that they overcame. Whether they overcame it with force, whether they overcame it with genocide, whether they overcame it with slavery. However they overcome the land that they had battles with, they soon set up this organization called a government, as well as a justice system. These are principalities, forces, a lot of things like that that we understand. As Americans, we know that there are principalities in place that govern the world. Nations govern the world. Systems govern the world. Banking systems govern the world. There's a lot of these things that govern and dictate how nations, societies, and even people react and live. They have a lot more power than you think, and they're real. They're real. This isn't a hypothesis, this isn't a dream. I'm not fantasizing or predicting. I'm talking about truth and things that are actually there. So one thing that I've learned in the Bible is that we don't fight a battle between flesh, we fight a battle between principalities. So when I talk about military strategy, when I talk about battle drills, I'm not talking about people. We're not going out and fighting people ever. Because it's not people that is our battle. It's not flesh. It's a principality one. It's a spiritual one. Sometimes they say spiritual warfare for those who are really strong in the faith. But for all you guys that may not know anything about Christianity, that's okay. Because these things still apply to your day-to-day. Whether you may be aware of it or not. There are principalities that dictate when you wake up, how you eat, where you go to school, where you work, etc. Why you do the things you do. There are a lot of governing forces that have a lot of control in ways you wouldn't expect. I'd say the media is very good at this. Whether you listen to Fox, CNN, or MSNBC, they all have your mind, your eye, and attention. Whether they're telling you all the negative things that are going on in the world, or all the positive things that are going on in the world, regardless of which one they're telling you at the time, they have your eyes and they have your mind. You're dependent upon the news to give you news. For instance, we think that our normal day-to-day problems are concerned with who's in the White House. Last time I checked, for the last 10 to 20 years, whoever's been in that house has not affected my current predicament. But they like to make you think that whoever's in that office will have an immediate effect on your normal life. And they do. They do because of how we react to who's in office. For instance, I remember when Trump became president and I was, my goodness, I thought I was living in a fantasy world. Couldn't believe it. I was honestly up all night contemplating how to get to Mexico. I was not even joking. I was very serious about this. I couldn't have been more serious. I was planning on moving to Mexico as soon as possible. As soon as possible. I was going to pack my bags, grab my passport, and roll out. Because I said, I can't be in this country, man. A place like this, who would want that? So I was literally about to go, but I had to stay for a little bit, and then, I realized, look, this guy's there. This only gives me incentive to do what I got to do better, to work more, to produce more. Ever since that moment, I actually started really taking my craft a lot more serious because I realized that there were going to be a lot more people in need of it, need of inspiration, in need of the motivation, in need of the guidance. For instance, you may be in need of this right now, but you don't know what exactly you're fighting. You don't know who exactly is your enemy. You think your enemy is a person. You think your enemy is a group of people. You think your enemy is people. So we fight each other because some of these principalities make us think that our enemy is a person, or our enemy is this person or that person because they think different or look different. And now we got each other fighting flesh. But we didn't think about doing that until we saw the media, until we saw some things that made us think that it was okay to fight each other. That's when it started to breed. If I didn't know any better, I think the news was actually trying to breed division among masses of people. One thing Satan uses is the tactic divide and conquer. If we can be divided as a body of Christ or a group of people, then we can be conquered easily. As long as we are divided, thinking one is better than the other, or one is divided by the other, then, only then can military strategy be used at its most effective sense. There's a lot of different strategies that I'm going to get into. One of those strategies is divide and conquer. One strategy happens to be terrorism. It's actually a military strategy for all of those that don't know. This is in the U.S. government textbooks. They use that as a strategy. There's also strategies called deception, tricks, trickery. Some great generals back in ancient times, I forgot Genghis Khan or Hammurabi. One of these great generals, big generals' names that you would probably know of, or even Caesar, they would use tricks and tactics to basically deceive their enemies. So they would use tricks to make the enemy think that they were bigger than they were or smaller than they were. One of the techniques that they used during World War II, the British, they would have dummy planes. So they literally had blow-ups of planes and tanks. So they would have tons of tanks blown up, just blow up tanks. You just put air in it. And everyone, and the Germans would fly above England. They would think that the British were prepared for war. They thought the British were more equipped than they were. And so Germany wouldn't fight the area because they knew that they were up against all these tanks and all these planes. It's the art of deception. That's one of the strategies that is used during wartime. I need to tell you right now, you are in a time of battle. Whether you like to admit this or not, where you are today is been in battle. There's fighting between nations. There's fighting between governments. There's fighting between political parties, and there's fighting between businesses. You were born into a world that you honestly had no control over. But because you were born into this battlefield in which you live and function and breathe, you need to know how to function within. You need to know how to move in it. That's why I first talked about knowing yourself, because if you know yourself, then you can know the environment in which you function. You got to know yourself to know the environment. And once you know the environment, then you'll know the enemy. Now, the enemy can be different for everyone. A lot of us like to think that we have different enemies and we have different allies and we're all fighting a different battle. But to be honest, we're not. Every single one of us, you watching, could be a different creed, different belief, different background, different everything. And you may think my enemy is these people, or my enemy is that ideology. I want to tell you right now, your battle isn't between flesh and it's not between ideologies. It's a lot bigger than that. The battle itself is deception. The battle itself is manipulation. The battle itself is trickery that is used through principalities called systems of government, systems of media, systems that we call and consider normal. These systems that are set up in our society have been very good at dictating how we act, what we see is bad and what we see is good. If we can see through the deception and the trickery, whether that come through the television screen, whether that come through the class that you're looking at school, then you can really see the deception in which your principality or enemy is. And a lot of the time, these principalities are there to make you feel more dependent. The mentality is to have a dependency among the masses. One of the craziest things about government that I've realized is that they make you think that you need them to govern. The basis of all government is people. If people understood their individual power, they would never depend on a government to give them power. But because they have you thinking that they are the source of power and you need to get power from them, i.e. rights and privileges, you're dependent upon it. It's funny to me when I hear people running around saying, I have my rights, and then they beg the government to give it to them. You have your rights to not have to beg a government to give it to you. That's going back to value, understanding you and knowing thyself. But we have to understand the principalities in place. Now, I'm not saying you don't respect the law of the land. Of course you have to. But you have to understand the law of the land and what it's formed upon. Some of the things that we consider just aren't just at all. Like the system of justice in America is actually formed on an unjust system. The justice system was formed after the slave system, and a lot of it was correlated in one. So once slavery was ended, the justice system came up, and it tried to emulate a sense of the slave system. Therefore, they would capture and take black men who were doing absolutely nothing. Saw a brother on the street, can't be out past 9 o'clock, can't be out past 8 o'clock, can't be out past 6 o'clock. They would change the law as they went, and they would lock you up, and they would make you another slave to the justice system. So you would be mining for free, in jail for life. Reminds me of the slave system. Did you guys not understand this? But slavery was actually legal. It was legal. It was actually a part of the law of the land. It was illegal to free a slave. Yeah, that was illegal, but it was legal to have one. That was a part of the law of the land. I don't know about you, but if you have a conscience, if you have a moral, if you have morals, if you have values, if you have understanding of faith, you would know that that in itself is contradictive to the values of this nation itself. The problem is about the states, this nation that I live within is very contradictive. We represent independence declaration that says every man is created equal, but when you look at slavery, it was actually contradictive to those principles, to those morals, to what it stands upon. Therefore, I already knew in advance that this nation can easily be compromised, and it's not a firm standing in what it says that they believe within. If you can compromise those principles and those values, which are so easy to do with slavery, then I'm surprised that you would even have those values to begin with. But we need to understand these principalities. They change as time goes on. One day it's illegal to marry someone of the same gender. The other day it is legal. One day it's illegal to have a slave. The next day it is legal to have a slave. And all of this is going against the principles in which it stands. One nation under God. Not under Satan, but under God. And last time I checked in the Bible, it said we don't fight a battle between flesh and blood, but a battle between principalities. And last time I checked in the Bible, it said every man was created in the image and likeness of God. Not just some, but every man, including the person you considered a slave. Look, I'm just going off from what I've seen, what I hear, and what I know to be true. So one thing we are at battle with is principalities. Whether you like to admit it or not, principalities come in the disguise of government, come in the disguise of a justice system that really isn't so just. But if we can understand the principalities that are there, we can understand what we're up against and what we need to do to overcome it. Again, I'm not saying you fight against the law of the land or anything like this. I'm saying we know where we stand by knowing what we're up against. Every single great leader has known this. Every single warfield general has understood his enemy. He understood it, he knew it, he breathed it, he understood it, and he moved according to it. Battle drills. Battle drills are techniques, tactics, and strategic operations that you do on a daily. Now, whether you like this or not, you are in a battlefield. It's a war field, it's a war zone. You need to be equipped mentally, spiritually, emotionally for the battles in which you will be fighting. Now, these battles are not going to be between flesh and blood. I keep trying to tell you this, but these battles will be spiritual and they will be financial. They will be governmental. They'll be very office battles. They're very paperwork battles, I would say. Battles not between men, but battles between ideas of men that breed division between men. These are the battles in which we will be fighting as days go on, but you'll need to be equipped for these battles, again, mentally, spiritually, physically, and emotionally. Now, the best way to handle this warfare is to know your power and to be aware of it, as well as what you're up against. Like I said, these battles are not just spiritual. Now, for all those that don't agree with spirituality, Christianity, and things like this, okay, I understand. Listen here. This principality for you is a system that you put your faith in. Some of you put your faith in the government. Some of you put your faith in the justice system. Some of you put your faith in your business, so your business system, your school system. But I need to tell you, these systems change every 5-10 years. So as long as you put your faith in something that can forever change and go against its principles, you're really putting your faith in something very deceptive. It's almost trickery, because one day it's not going to help you when you're in need of it. I've learned this before too. Being in the military, I've learned that sometimes I trust a system that does not always have my back when I need it. And I've learned this a hard way. Not going to get into detail, but I have learned it. And I have learned that sometimes these things don't always have your back. So the first thing you need to do is figure out what principality or what are you putting your faith in, whether that be God, whether that be a system, whatever it is. What is it that you're putting your faith in, and does it stand by principles? Does it stand by morals? Does it have values? These are the things you will have to stand by, because this is the thing that will come through when you need it. Other than that, you need to be very aware of things like, again, media, government, justice systems, things that can change every 5 to 10 years. The laws change every 5 to 10 years. One day it's legal for this, one day it's illegal for that. Yet the other day it was illegal to have weed. Now it's legal to have it. So a system like this does not go by morals, it doesn't go by principles, and it doesn't go by values. It goes by the to and fro of the cunning of its mind, of its spirit, of emotion, and it changes. So it's not firm. I need you guys to be very aware of these things, because this is real, this is very practical, and these are things that go on today. Again, you were born into this world. It's not your fault that you experience these things, that you see these things, that you're in it. You just need to know how to maneuver with it, with what you have and in the environment that you're in, knowing and being aware of what you're up against. So that way you can prosper, you can grow, but you won't be naive. I see little girls, 14-year-old girl run around, go to the mall, right? She gets beat by a cop. A mall cop is beating a 14-year-old girl. I can't make this up, because this is real. 14-year-old little girl, small little 14, little baby, at the mall with her friends. A mall cop, grown man, probably mid-30s, punching a 14-year-old girl while she's on her knees. Just on the ground straight up. He's got his knee in her back and he's punching her. 1, 2, 3, punching, hard punches. 14-year-old girl. He's got his knee in her chest, on her neck, knee on her neck. And while he's got his knee on her neck, he's got his hand on her shorts. He's pulling his hand is on her shorts. You can see him pulling her shorts all the way up, where he's literally, you can see her underwear. He's pulling it all the way up, and then he's punching her in the stomach. I can't make this up. This is what's going on now. 14-year-old black girl, right? White cop, 30-something, middle-aged man. His excuse is she was violent. I was scared. I had to punch her to protect myself. So I said in this situation, if he wants to fight someone, he can go fight someone his own size. If I was there, I'd put him in a headlock and have him fight somebody who will fight back. But if you're going to fight an innocent little girl that can't move, that does not have any power and strength, and you're going to punch a little girl in these ways, it tells a lot about the enemy in which I'm fighting. It tells me that the enemy is very desperate, that the enemy that I'm up against will do anything to get ahead, will do anything to make himself seem stronger, anything, because he's desperate. And desperation is not a military strategy, but it's actually a folding of war. When you know the people or the principality that you're up against is weak, it'll do anything to make itself look strong. Deception is the key to warfare, and they're very good at making you think that they're bigger than they really are. The problem is right now we fight a battle between principality, but a principality called white supremacy. That's a principality. Whether you're white or black or Asian, it doesn't matter. That's a principality in itself. Now, white people know it's a principality. Black people know it's a principality. It doesn't matter your race or color. This white supremacy thing actually is a principality in itself. That's very deceptive and very evil. Doesn't have anything to do with white people. It in itself is the devil. So you have to be very aware of that. Now, being aware of that principality, you want to understand that right now, that principality is desperate. Desperate to stay alive. Desperate to keep itself going. And you can tell how desperate it is because only in desperation do you kill the weak. Only in desperation do you kill the unarmed, the children. Only in desperation. You'll do anything to make it seem like you're ahead. In warfare, it's very sick and very sad, but one thing the enemies would do in battlefields is that when they were desperate, they would go to the huts of the women and the kids and they would kill the children and they would rape the women just to try to seem like they're still ahead. We fight an enemy and a principality that will live by no morals, that will live by no principles, but is rugged, ragged, and deceptive. You have to know this in the battlefield that you fight within, because these tools will be very important for your progression. Again, I'm saying this isn't between flesh, but it's a principality that you fight. So that cop, or that mall cop, he's under the possession of the principality which he may be fighting with. Obviously, he is desperate. Obviously, this organization or this principality is very scared for its own breeding and its own success and its own growth. And they'll do whatever they can. Whatever it can. The white supremacy factor is a principality that needs to be confronted as such. That means when we're in church, we need to pray against it. I don't care if you're white, I don't care if you're Asian, we need to all pray against that principality because it's demonic and it's deceptive. Okay? Whenever this devil is trying to keep itself alive, it'll do anything to keep itself alive. Kill children, kill babies, abuse little girls, abuse little boys. You see, when you look on the media, you'll see a bunch of little kids look like me, black boys and girls, beaten up. They don't kill the older men. They kill the 14-year-old. They kill the 15-year-old. They kill the 16-year-old. They kill the weak. It's because they're very, very desperate, willing to do anything to get ahead or to seem like they're ahead. But they're losing, and they're losing very quickly. They know that there is no room for it in this growing, ever-changing society. And in order to keep itself alive, it has to act on its sense of desperation. And when we're fighting a desperate enemy, we have to fight with our head about us. We cannot fight off emotion. We have to fight with logic, because right now what we're up against is very emotional. What we're up against is very deceptive. And the best way it has in controlling your action is by conflicting with your emotion. You have to be mentally stable, logical, strategical, and patient. I'm teaching you guys this because it's real and it's true. Again, like I said, you may believe in Christianity, you may not. This is what it is. It's a principality. It's a system. Whether you're white, whether you're Asian, I don't care what color you come from, what race you are. You need to both understand that white supremacy in itself is a principality that needs to go. And it will. Just like there's a lot of, I would say black supremacy could be one, but it's not. Black supremacy does not have the power of white supremacy. Black supremacy is a word. White supremacy is a structure. It's a system that's set up that governs the whole world. Because it's in the position that it's in, it has to be addressed with the right knowledge, the right tools, the right wisdom, the right awareness. I can't call black supremacy a system because it's a word, it's an idea, it's a thought. Black supremacy does not exist. There is no system that keeps certain people on top like white supremacy does. It takes away opportunity, and it keeps those who have none with none, as well as it lifts up those who it chooses to be lifted up. You need to understand that what you're up against could be benefiting you. It could be the structure that gives you your paycheck. It could be the structure that supports your beliefs. It could be the structure that actually agrees with what you're thinking. But I still need to tell you, whether it does these things, it's still a principality that will come down at the end of the day. Whether you willingly want to remove yourself from this, or willingly want to go and pray that it does not prosper. Either way, it will come falling down. It's in desperation right now. And there's an inevitable warfare that will lead it to its utmost destruction. I got a lot more strategies, a lot more things to be talking about very shortly, but I did need to address this because it's deep, it's real, and it's true. This is one of the most present problems that we're dealing with currently in the world. Alright guys, so now I want to talk to you a little bit more about strategy and military battle drills when it comes to battling this system. Now, in order for us to battle a system that's been set up for so long, put in place, structured in such a way that you can't almost see it, it's very deceptive, you can't see it, it's not always overt, a lot of the time it's covert, but this system needs battling. And the way we battle a system like this, whether you're white, black, Hispanic, I don't care what color you are, I don't care what creed you come from, this needs to be battled, and I'm going to give you the tools how to do it. Like I said, the way you battle this system is by understanding where it works. What systems does it function within? Now and again, this is a battlefield for everyone. I don't care your color, I don't care your creed. This white supremacy is something we all need to fight. Whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're Asian, you gotta fight the devil itself. Okay? And if you don't agree with Christianity, I'm going to tell you right now, this system hides in the form of the school system. This system hides in the form of the government. It hides in the form of the justice system. It hides in different forms. And it portrays itself in different forms as well. And I'm going to speak more about this. Now, it hides itself within the government because last time I checked, the government thought it was legal to have slavery. They considered this to be a legal act. And I want to tell you right now, if you have any morals, any conscience, any principles, any values, any human hearts, or any sense of humanity, you would know that the harsh brutality of slavery should never, ever be considered a legal governmental act ever, unless that government is demonic in nature. I didn't say it, I'm just suggesting. Let's think about this, right? If this government that we follow allows these things, then what government do we really follow? Is it really a government under God, or is it a government under the whims and the desires of the flesh, of Satan itself? Is it a government built upon slaves, or is it a government built upon morals and values? Does it stand by the Declaration of Independence, or does it live by a different creed that doesn't profess what the principles really are? Does it live off the backs of kidnappers and rebellions, people that formed rebellions, rebellion protesters that could not conform to the government of Britain, but had to rebel against it and come to its own land, and then take the land of those who once lived here by killings and murders and genocide, to take a whole people off the face of the earth? This is the truth. This is what has happened in this country, and this is the country in which we stand under. Now again, I respect the flag, and I wear the flag at times. Matter of fact, I'm currently in the Army National Guard, so I can understand this. I understand respect. Power respects power. Because I have it, I respect it. But do I agree with all of its foundings? Do I agree with its morals? I don't know its morals. I don't know its principles. I don't know if it has any. Because one day it says, I agree every man should be equal, but then one day it takes a group of people and it says they're not equal. What moral is that? It says it's a nation under God, but they treat men differently. And God said in the book that every man is created in the image and likeness of God. Every man. It says it's a nation under God, but we act in ways that don't represent the glory of God when we take God out of our school systems, and when we take God out of our justice systems, and when we take him out of everything that stands for something. What nation are we really in? Does it stand by what it preaches? Or does it say something one day and changes its mind the next? One day it's illegal to hold slaves. The next day it's legal. The other day it's illegal to smoke weed. The next day it's legal to smoke weed. I can't trust a system that does not stand by a code of justice but claims to be it. I can't stand by a government that one day claims to be for the people and the next day against the people. I'm confused. I want to find something that has morals, something that has integrity, something that will always stay the same. One thing I know that stayed the same throughout the time in history is the gospel, the teachings of Christ. I stand by that teaching. I stand by that scripture because it's given me strength. Now, some of you, again, may not believe in it. I'm not suggesting you do, but I want you to be aware and to question some of the things that are already in place. Do they have morals? Do they stand by something? We have to know what we're up against. Again, I want to give you the drills, the battle drills. Knowing who you are is the first thing. Knowing the environment and knowing the enemy, the principality. And then the way we actively fight it is by bringing awareness to it. You see, Satan loves to move in darkness. He loves to move in disguise. He loves to hide as a serpent, pretend to be a friend. It's very, very lizard-like. He fits the situation, camouflages himself in different environments to trick you. But I need us to be aware of him wherever we may go. So that means we have to bring awareness to the principality, to the situation in which we're up against. So that means if we see injustice anywhere, we have to confront it as injustice everywhere. The problem we have in America is that we justify injustice. Instead of confronting injustice, we justify it. We say, oh no, it was okay for the officer to punch the 14-year-old black girl because she was acting wild or she was acting like this. Injustice anywhere, again, is injustice everywhere. If you can say that it's okay for this cop to punch a 14-year-old black girl in the stomach, then you should also be okay with the cop, a black cop, punching a 14-year-old white girl in the stomach. That's just my idea. If you're okay with that, you should be okay with the other one. If you're okay with 14-year-old black boys getting killed on the middle of the street, you should be okay with 14-year-old white boys getting killed in the middle of the street. If you'd be okay with 14-year-old black women getting raped and you should by white cops, then you should be okay with white 14-year-old girls getting raped by black cops. Either way, these are both horrible things, right? But if you agree with the former, then you should agree with the latter. You can't just pick and choose, okay? If you agree with evil one way, you have to agree with evil always. So one of the deceptions, or the easiest way for us to confront it, is to address injustice for what it is. I don't care if you're white, I don't care what color you are. You have to address injustice for injustice. You have to confront it. Have to acknowledge it. I've seen it before. I've seen injustice before. I've seen it happen to me and I've seen it happen to others. And what I like to do is confront those things immediately. Because I let others know that I don't put up with it. You could shun me, you could ostracize me, you could tease me, you could make fun of me, you could do whatever you want, but I do not put up with it. Because I've seen it too much to keep quiet. I've seen too much to not say anything. It's time for all of us to take a stand and address it for what it is. The minute you address it, the minute you acknowledge it and see it and claim it for what it is, you give it all of its power depletes. Because the power it had was in the military strategy of deception. See, it works off the strategy of deception. It likes to make you think that it's bigger than it really is. So in order to destroy its deceptive techniques, you have to address it immediately. Because the minute you address it, you see how small it is. You see how weak it is. You see how scared it really is. But when you keep quiet, when you let it grow, the deception is that it's big, and the reality is it's not. It's very small, and you have the power to destroy it by confronting it. That's your ability. That's your strength. And like I was going back to earlier, if you put up with injustice anywhere, you're putting up with it everywhere. Again, if you're putting up with the enslavement of Africans in the Middle East, then you're putting up with enslavement with white people in America by black people. If you're putting up with slavery in this country, then you're putting up with it being okay in the other country. If you're putting up with kids being separated in the US because the people weren't legally here, then you're putting up with children being separated in Mexico for being legally there. Think about it happening to you, and then come back to me with whether or not it's okay. If your child was to be killed, white child, black child, Asian child, Hispanic child, by a police officer that's not of your culture, not of your race, doesn't think like you, doesn't act like you, doesn't know your values, doesn't know what you stand for, whatever, would you be okay with this? My answer is no, you wouldn't. So why would it be okay for someone else to do it? But then you justify, you say, well, because it was this situation, it was that situation. Okay, well, let's see the next time you can justify the fact of a black cop killing a white girl for no reason. And then justify it. Let them tell you that, oh, well, because the white girl, because she was acting crazy, she was blowing up, she was freaking out, that's why she was killed. Or that's why she was punched in the stomach. You wouldn't buy it for more than 3 seconds. And that cop would have lost his job immediately. But there's something going on here in this country, and it makes me sick, and it's the deception. It's the tactic of deception that is used by Satan. And I can't let us live by that deception much longer. We have to confront it immediately as it is, as all people, not as one group, not as another group, but as all. Because one day, if you confront it and you allow it to grow here, it will grow there too. This is very deceitful. You separate and you think that it's only among one group or another group. It's among all of us. As long as we keep quiet and let it ride, we're letting it ride everywhere. And I need you guys to know this because it's the truth. It's the truth. It's the God-given truth. I didn't make this truth up. It is what it is. I didn't come into the world planning for it to be the way it is. It is how it is, and I was born into it, and so are you. How we react and how we act is up to us. We have to take a stand as Christians, and even if you're not a Christian, we have to take a stand of men and women of value. People that know ourselves. We have to do something. Today. Now. In some way, shape, or form. It's not just by voting. It's by actually doing. Impacting, creating, becoming, and representing what God wants to represent in you and what you can represent through men. Understand this. Know it. Live it. Breathe it. Be it. Change the world by changing how you act.